Welcome to Sens Talk. Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon Plant, and I am your host today. The Ottawa Senators made two moves on the first day of free agency frenzy. That's right, today was the first of many days of free agency, as that's right, officially the 2024-2025 season is done. Hello to the 2025-2026 season. The first step of the season, of course, is free agency. And the Ottawa Senators were not as active as other teams like the Los Angeles Kings, who we're throwing around money, we'll just leave it at that. But they made a couple of key signings for Belleville and for us here in Ottawa that, again, aren't the most sexy, flashy signings, but ultimately are solid signings that should help the respective clubs here in Ottawa and in Belleville. So with that, here they are. The Ottawa Senators made two solid depth signings today, bringing in veteran Lars Eller and top AHL free agent Olle Lycksell. In this video, I'm going to take a look at both of the players and what they bring to Ottawa and to Belleville. But before that, I want to say thank you to Dylan Puckniak and Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment for sponsoring Sens Talk. As Sens Talk is proudly presented by Dylan Puckniak, Ottawa's exclusive realtor with Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment. Providing a bilingual real estate service that serves the Ottawa-Gatineau community, Dylan Puckniak is also specialized in supporting professional athletes that come and go in our city, providing a service that takes care of the people at the highest level. For a realtor experience puts you and your needs first, visit dylanpuckniak.kw.com. That is dylanpuckniak.kw.com to find out more today. Again, thank you to Dylan Puckniak and Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment for sponsoring Sens Talk. So let's get into the fun stuff, shall we? Again, wasn't the busiest day by any means for the Ottawa Senators on day one, but as many people say, sometimes the best deal is the deal you didn't make. And the Ottawa Senators did not overpay for anyone today, and that in itself is a win. We'll talk about it later in the debriefing notes. I have a few notes from Steve Staios' press conference today to the media. Also, some Sens players have signed elsewhere, so some updates on that and more. But just quickly to talk about the cap, the Ottawa Senators have roughly $5 million left in cap space. So without overpaying for anyone today, later on, the Ottawa Senators, whether it's at the trade deadline or before that during the season, or even look, in September, in October, before the regular season kicks off, the Sens have some space now to make some trades to, shuffle things around if they feel like they can make an addition or an upgrade somewhere. So having $5 million in cap space, some people are going to be like, well, look, the Sens aren't spending. What a shock. Back to the good old days, right? No. I'm fully expecting the Ottawa Senators to use that money when it's appropriate. There's no reason to believe the Ottawa Senators are being stingy on money, specifically because the top AHL free agent we just signed, Lycksell out of Philadelphia, got a guaranteed $500,000 on his deal. You don't do that if you're a club looking to, save some money, you know what I mean? So, again, just because the Ottawa Senators didn't spend today does not mean they will not spend in the future. But they did spend a bit of money today, and one of those signings were with Lars Eller, a longtime veteran in the National Hockey League, and is a player that is easy to get excited about on your fourth line. This is exactly what you're looking for your fourth line center. And at that rate, beautiful. Considering some of the contracts we were seeing thrown out there in the free agent market, this is a bargain. Because again, Lars Eller, he's still 36. He's not 38, 39. He still has a couple years left to give at the minimum. This is a guy with over 1,000 games of NHL experience and a guy that wins more faceoffs than he loses. So this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what we wanted today going into this free agency frenzy. A fourth-line center that can fill that role at a cheap rate. The Ottawa Senators did just that by signing Lars Eller to this one-year, $1.25 million deal. And the salary bonuses attached to the contract, they have not been made public. However, it would add up potentially to another $1 million. So the max that Lars Eller can make on this deal is $2.25 million. Pretty good there for the Great Dane. Hello, Matt Sogard, another Great Dane here in the Sens organization. You absolutely love to see that. And again, some people are going to be like, Brandon, relax. It's a fourth-line center. It's not a game changer. It actually is, and we'll talk about that in a second, but having a fourth-line center that can win faceoffs and brings experience, that never hurts. That's only going to help. And again, does this mean we're Stanley Cup contenders now and going to win the Cup? No, obviously, but the Senators filled a need that otherwise would have been pretty difficult to fill internally. Again, a guy like Stephen Halliday, you don't want him there on the fourth line in a defensive role. There was limited guys left in free agency, and you don't want to give up assets for a fourth line guy that's going to be gone in a year. This is very, very ideal. Now, the 6'1", 207-pound center has played in 1,116 games and has put up 424 points, 188 goals in that span. Last year, he put up 22 points, 10 goals in 80 games between Pittsburgh and the Washington Capitals. So again, this is a guy that, he's not the prime Lars Eller, top six guy, but he still has a bit left in the tank here. 22 points, 10 goals is nothing to laugh at, especially, again, if that's going to be your guy on the fourth line. As I said earlier today, when the Sens signed Nick Cousins, he had 15 points. If you get like 15 to 20 points from your fourth line guys each, that's not bad. I mean, again, you're obviously hoping for more than 20 plus, but 15 to 25, give or take, that's more than fine. At the end of the day, you're going to need your top nine to really carry that offensive weight anyways, and this core, in my opinion, can. And we'll talk about that later. A lot of people are saying the Sens didn't really do anything today. That is partly true, but the Sens have done a lot in the last 6 months, so that's not really fair to say either. We'll talk about that later, though. Continuing on, though, with Lars Eller, he can play on your penalty kill, and that is very, very integral for the Ottawa Senators. Their penalty kill at times last year really, really struggled. We all know that formation does not work. Hopefully Lars Eller can be the answer to that problem. He's been one of the more well-renowned penalty killers in the National Hockey League for some time. This is a guy that's very, very responsible defensively. And again, as I already said, having a defensively responsible veteran fourth line center is very, very valuable for any team, especially the Ottawa Senators, a team that struggles to win faceoffs. And speaking of faceoffs, let's just say Lars Eller does not struggle to win faceoffs. Last year, Lars Eller won just around 51% of his faceoffs, making him, again, the perfect fit for Ottawa's need at the fourth line center role. Obviously, again, we needed a guy that could win faceoffs. Last year, he would have ranked fourth on the Ottawa Senators in faceoff wins with 289. And he has a career rate above 50%. So that is always a key thing to have. It never hurts to bring in more experience, another veteran voice of the locker room, especially for a team that's looking to make the playoffs. But again, for the fourth line, defensively responsible, can put up some points, again, like 20 points or so. That's like a point every 3-4 games. Not bad at all, again, from your fourth line. Wins more faceoffs than he loses, can play on the penalty kill, and again, would have been ranked fourth on the Ottawa Senators last year in faceoff wins, ahead of guys like Ridley Gregg. So you love to see that. This is a very, very good sneaky signing for the Ottawa Senators. And sneaky Steve Staios does it again. This was announced at like 4:15, 4:20, just when he was expected to meet with the media. So again, steady Steve Staios doesn't always make the splash moves, but he always makes the right moves, it feels. And this right here feels like it could be one of those right moves. Now, Lars Eller, last thing on him, 56 hits last year and 35 blocks. So he's not going to block as many, shots as you would normally expect. He can throw around the body a little bit there, but that's not really his game. He's not the physical guy. He's more of the defensively responsible guy that's in the right position at the right place at the right time. And the advanced analytics show that. 5-on-5 Corsi 4 percentage, 52.40, and expected goals 4 percentage at 5-on-5, 51.93. So he can still drive the play as well. Again, this is a guy that brings a hell of a lot of experience to this team. And again, from your fourth line center of $1.25 million, this is literally perfect. Literally perfect, especially considering the fact that the Sens have such a nice amount of cap space remaining, and they filled this hole when everyone else basically that was like on a third or fourth line contract going into today got massive paydays for whatever reason. This is really, really nice. Again, you don't expect, him to put up Tim Stützle numbers, but these are the type of guys, like I said earlier today with Nick Cousins, that you need if you want a competitive roster that can, roll 4 lines on the forward core and compete whenever anyone's on the ice. So, again, welcome to Ottawa, Lars Eller. A beautiful signing. Maybe I'm a little too excited. Maybe I was waiting too long all day for a signing. But don't blame me. I do think, again, when you can bring in a veteran at such a cheap contract that wins faceoffs, can play penalty kill duty, and overall is just very defensively responsible, you do that 10 out of 10 times. So, nice piece of work here for Steve Staios. And again, welcome to Ottawa, Lars Eller. Now, the other piece of business the Ottawa Senators did today is they signed 25-year-old free agent winger Olle Lycksell to a 1-year, 2-way deal, which carries $775,000 in the NHL and $450,000 in the AHL, with a guarantee of $500,000 on this contract for 1 year for the newest Ottawa Senator winger. Again, 25 years old, so still potentially has something to give, and maybe even make that jump from the AHL to the NHL. Because last year he did play in 19 games for the Philadelphia Flyers, putting up 5 points. He's played in, 45 career NHL games, putting up 11 points, including a goal. So he's a bit of NHL experience, but the bulk of his pro experience here in North America. He was over there in Sweden before. Over here in North America, ever since getting drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers, he's been unreal in the AHL. That's why I say he's a top AHL free agent. He was. On the AHL free agent boards, he was top 10 on most of the lists. This is a guy that was highly coveted, which again explains the guarantee of $500,000 on an AHL contract. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. Look, in 134 career AHL games, he put up 128 points. That is very, very solid, okay? Nearly 60 goals as well in that, span. So this is a guy here that can absolutely produce for the Belleville Senators. And that's what you need, especially, again, when you lose guys like Cole Reinhardt and Angus Crookshank, some of their leading point producers, this year. Wyatt Bongiovanni's another guy potentially they lose. Here, let me check my phone real quick if there's any other signings. Nope. So, because of that, again, you need guys like this to help, continue to keep Belleville competitive. You got prospects in Belleville. You need to ice a competitive roster there. And also, on top of that, you're also going to need guys in Belleville that can come up in a pinch if there's injuries or if there's, for whatever reason, a need for him to be called up. He's a guy with some NHL experience, that can fill in that pinch. And again, 128 points in 134 AHL games, nearly a point per game player. He's a dominant AHL guy who maybe just needed a change of scenery. We saw it with Adam Gaudette last year, where, we thought he was going to be that AHL guy I'm talking about right now that would dominate there, in Belleville and help a young Belleville team with our prospects to develop. But no, he forced his way into the conversation, that being Adam Gaudette, and played basically the entire year with the Ottawa Senators. This could be the same situation. Now, Gaudette had much more NHL experience compared to Lycksell, but again, point per game player in the AHL, 25 years old, maybe he just needs a change of scenery. So we will have to watch this guy. At the worst case, this is a guy that's going to help, Belleville, and he's going to dominate down there, and that's just something that you love to see because, again, Belleville should roster a strong, team as well. We want to see that for our prospects, and we just want to see Belleville do well. And then in the worst case, just for the depth of the organization, it helps to have guys like this that can come up in a pinch, maybe even produce. Again, you just never know. There's a reason why he's so dominant in the AHL, and maybe he just needs to change of scenery and, new line mates, a new system. You never know. We've seen crazier, even here in Ottawa, literally last year. So with that, welcome to Ottawa Olle. By the way, love that name. And, again, ultimately, this is a guy that likely will be in Belleville, but hey, don't count him out. Again, when you're producing nearly a point per game rate in one of the best leagues in, pro hockey, that's worth a consideration potentially, at least at camp, to sniff, a roster spot. He's definitely could be one of those players on the bubble going into camp, competing for a fourth line role, and at the very least, again, being a top line, top six guy for the Belleville Senators. So with that, let me know what you think in the comment section down below about those two signings. But before I wrap up, just a couple of housekeeping notes. So firstly, Steve Staios met with the media after the Lars Eller signing was announced, and he made a couple of interesting comments. Firstly, he mentioned how he's going to start negotiations with Shane Pinto and his camp to get a contract extension done. That is great news. Shane Pinto is a pivotal part of this core, and having him locked up would really solidify Ottawa's center situation down the middle for years and years and years to come. You don't want to lose a guy like Shane Pinto, one of the better face-off guys on this team as well. And he's just a stud all around, 20-plus goal scorer. You got to keep him, and I'm glad that they're making that a priority. Levi Merilainen also is confirmed basically the backup now, as Steve Staios said as much, and that's more than fine with me. Having a guy like Levi Merilainen, he's done all he can do in the AHL. He's proven he's ready for that next step. And again, having a 1-2 punch of Allmark and Levi Merilainen is pretty solid. Again, I will say, however, if we can bring in a third-string goaltender to just, help Belleville and keep them competitive while also insulating our depth in the crease, that would not be something I'm against because, again, we're only an injury away from having basically two goalies with, a handful of NHL games being our goaltenders. So bringing in a veteran guy like a Vitek Vanacek on a two-way deal where he plays in the AHL but gets called up if, God forbid, Allmark gets hurt or if Levi Merilainen struggles, that's not something I'm against either, and I would expect that, frankly, to happen at some point in the summer, probably later in the summer. But again, that's just something to keep an eye on because, going into next year, you probably want to have a third stringer that has a bit more experience. But hey, Matt Sogard could be that guy. I think he has the tools to be able to be a guy that can play in the National Hockey League. He's got that frame. He's got the athleticism. He just needs to put it all together. I think he can. So, I'm not totally against, giving him that opportunity as a third guy and letting him start primarily in Belleville and, get some reps there. But ultimately, again, for the Ottawa Senators, having an inexperienced backup goaltender and a starting goalie that does get injured from time to time, it wouldn't hurt, is all I'm saying, to bring in a third-string goaltender. Ultimately, though, the Sens have roughly $5 million of cap space for the remainder of the summer without Jensen on the LTIR. So with him on the LTIR, that opens up a few more million. But that's a move that's going to be likely made, if made, going into camp later on in September. So look, I mean, like, that right there is a reason why I believe the Sens aren't necessarily done. They have at least $5 million of cap space. They can maybe sign a guy like Jack Roslovic, for $3 million, $3.5 million for a year or two. They got a lot more cap space opening up after this year. So that's not something I would be totally against. But either way, having a bit of cap space, especially $5 million, is a very lucky and, a luxury to have, frankly, going into the season when you can kind of dictate what you want through trades and whatnot. So again, I've seen a lot of complaints about the fact that the Sens really haven't made any moves today. I don't think that's really, really fair. In the last few months, Steve Staios and co. have brought in new blood like Fabian Zetterlund, extended him, Dylan Cousins, and of course brought in Spence at the deadline. So those are 3 players right now that bolsters the blue line and replaces Hamonic. So that's an upgrade right there. You're talking about guys like Zetterlund in a full year in a top 6 role. He should produce much, much more. That should help in the 5-on-5 scoring. And then a full season of Dylan Cousins with Drake Batherson. We saw what they could do together in a short sample size. You should be very excited to see what they can do in a larger sample with one another. Now, the last thing I'll mention is multiple players left Ottawa today and signed with their new teams. Anton Forsberg, kudos to him, one of the best waiver pickups by far in Ottawa Senator history. He leaves the Ottawa Senators ranked 5th in games played with 142, 5th in starts with 132, 6th in wins with 62, tied for 6th in shutouts with 8, tied for 14th in save percentage at 905, and 17th in goals against average with 2.99. Sens legend forever again, one of the best, waiver pickups in Ottawa Senator history, no doubt about that. And I wish him nothing but the best there in LA. Well-deserved contract there for him. Get some term as well, which is great to see. Dennis Gilbert also signs with the Philadelphia Flyers. Of course, acquired in the Josh Norris trade, so good luck to him over there in Philadelphia. Speaking of that, Jacob Bernard-Docker, not a Sens player, but a friend of the show. Shout out to him. He signed with Detroit, so we'll be seeing a lot of him next year. I'm sure he'll score a goal on us. Just mark my words on that. Speaking of friends of the show, Angus Crookshank. This one really sucks, to be honest. I don't think Ottawa ever gave him really a fair shot. This is a guy that I think has a lot left to give and absolutely still projects, in my opinion, as a bottom 6 NHLer. He's a nice little ball of energy, a gritty, chirpy kind of guy. He can put in some offense as well. He signs with the New Jersey Devils. I really like that for them. And he signs there for 2 years. He gets some term. He gets a true opportunity. And again, friend of the show, nice guy. I've interacted with him many, many times. And I wish him nothing but the best in New Jersey. He deserves his opportunity. And again, I hope he does great things there. Adam Gaudette, the hockey god, he leaves Ottawa and he goes to San Jose. Good for him getting paid there, $4 million for 2 years. Solid money for him. And Cole Reinhardt signs with the New York Islanders. So Ryan Bonus steals one of his favorite players from Belleville. So, best of luck to all of those guys. And, ultimately, again, I'll be rooting for all of them and their success, except when they play the Ottawa Senators. Now, with that, as I already said, let me know what you think in the comment section down below about the moves Ottawa made today. And let me know what you think about what Ottawa should do moving forward. Who should we trade for? What did we miss? Let me know in the comment section down below as always. And with that, this is not the end for Sens Talk. We got a lot of content planned. Do not worry. Yes, this is the official end of the season for many of the guys from TSN and Sportsnet and whatnot. But I am not going anywhere, baby. You can't get rid of me that easy. We got some interviews planned. I got some special content planned as well. So, plenty of videos coming your way. But again, enjoy the summer. I'll see you around. And with that, we'll talk soon. Go Sens, go.